So a large prompt is, in my mind, something that's going to be 2 or 3 pages long and
Hmm.
often accompanied with some other source document.
Did you just rely on, the LLMs to teach you and to guide you, or did you take on some studies? How did you learn to be a solopreneur?
I teach a lot of business owners how to think about prompt engineering. And what I think prompt engineering, it comes down, I have it on one of my slides, but it's really just knowing what the LLM needs to do the job well.
What do you think's happening in the world? Like when you work with these companies, is everyone going to lose their jobs? Is everyone going to transform to be solopreneurs? Where do you think things are going?
Well, I think like the development of any technology, right?
Is AI hype or help? G'day and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Pete Cooper, and our topic is AI hype or help. Today's guest is Patrick Neyland from Neyland Solutions. Patrick is a solopreneur, built a business over the last few years helping companies and people transform with AI. We go in deep on some of the great ways that he's helping companies transform, but he also has a lot of insights, unique insights around how AI can really help you. So stay tuned and let's get into it. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Look, Patrick, for the audience, Patrick Neyland is here with his company, which is Neyland's Consulting, was it?
Neyland Solutions.
Neyland Solutions. There we go. First mistake, straight out of the gate. There you go.
It's okay.
So thanks for joining us, Patrick. Tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll get into your background and so forth.
Sure. So I'm the founder of Neland Solutions, and we help small businesses figure out how to use AI, and then we ultimately help them use it. So that can take the form of training or consulting on an AI project, but a lot of times it involves building an automation, setting up an agent, or really just we offer a free AI assessment for all companies because I noticed that that's one of the biggest issues for small business owners today is I get 50 new posts on my LinkedIn every day that tell me I'm an idiot for not using AI in this way. I'm falling behind. And so we created a free AI assessment where you actually just have a conversation with our AI agent about your business, and she asks you all these questions, and then I get the transcript of that, and then I sit down over the next day or two, and I look at your business and think about, hey, how could AI actually help your business? And then I write a report and record a little video to walk you through that report and just give you a high level overview to kind of quiet all the noise around it and just help you have a better understanding of how AI can help your business.
Patrick, as preparation for this podcast, I did do that assessment, and I was really impressed. As you said, it was a female voice, which is what I'm used to with ChatGPT too.
Sure.
Because does AI really have a gender though? I mean, that's another question, philosophical question we can get into. But I like the way you structured it. I thought it was really good. You're demonstrating AI, but you also put a human side to it. Your video was very genuine. It's a really good job. And later on, we're going to get into maybe put you on the spot and see if there's any insights that you can
Sure.
share with that assessment. But let's step back a little bit. How did you get into this field? What's your background?
Mm. So my background, I did my undergrad in accounting, and then I was introduced to the idea of doing a PhD in accounting, which most people don't think that
Never
you could
heard
get a
of that.
PhD in accounting. Like, what
No.
does that even mean? That
Hmm.
sounds like the most boring degree you could possibly get. But I was told that I could make, two or $300,000 a year and have the summers off. And so I thought, okay, and I don't have to go into public accounting. This sounds fantastic. And so, my second year of my undergrad degree, I started, prepping for that route. And I wasn't a good student in high school, so I needed to catch up a little bit academically. So I started working hard, started studying a lot more, and I started actually prepping for a master's program that I knew would be able to prepare me for the PhD program. And what people might not understand about an accounting PhD program is that it's not just advanced accounting, it's a research degree where you're working a lot with data analytics and with statistics and with math, and you're trying to answer complex questions about the world, about the accounting profession, about how markets work. And so I needed to get better at math and data analytics. So that's what I decided to structure my master's degree around. I set out to get a master's degree in financial economics, where I spent the majority of my time, learning a little bit about financial economics, but mostly diving into data analytics and all of the other tools associated with data analytics, like machine learning and deep learning. And I was so fortunate that I started working on a research team in my master's program where we were developing a Python micro simulation to simulate policy proposals, like tax. Let's say a state wants to propose a new state tax policy. Well, they would use our micro simulation model to kind of look at what are the effects of that model. And a couple months after starting to work on that, ChatGPT came out. And so
Hmm.
all of my data analytics classes, all of my deep learning, machine learning, and my work on this Python development team, it all, culminated and got started at the birth of, LLMs, like what we now see as AI. And so I very quickly became an expert because I was learning about this stuff as it was being developed, as it was coming out. So I went ahead and started my PhD program at Arizona State University, thinking, hey, I have this background in data analytics and AI. How can that inform my research? So the first independent research project that I set out was, how does the adoption of generative AI among tax enforcement agencies affect like corporate tax behavior? And so, as a part of that research project, I spoke with the director of the department, the Arizona Department of Revenue, and I said, "So, how are you guys using AI?" And his response was, "Oh, we aren't using AI. We are no, like we have like five initiatives that we're focused on. There's no way we could add another one. We just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the
Hmm.
expertise. Like
Hmm.
there was no way we could do it." And so I thought, I got feedback from our professor, and he said, you're either using the wrong methodology or you're 10 years too early on this question. And I thought, oh, that's lame. Like this is like one of the only research topics I'm really excited about. And so it was at that point that I thought, okay, maybe I should pivot, take the expertise that I have, and start helping small businesses implement AI into their operations. So that's why I started Neyland Solutions, and that's what I'm doing now. Is
And how
realizing,
many
hey,
years
there's
have
an
you been doing that?
opportunity, and that's what we do. What's that?
How many years have you been doing that now?
I've only been doing this for about 6, 8 months. I started back in October, so still very fresh to it.
Yep.
But yeah, about 8 months.
Well, that's all it takes. I was talking to someone yesterday on another podcast, launched in February, has 20,000 subscribers or clients, depending on how you slice and dice it, but
Sure.
who've come in through the front door and are working or potentially working with her. And so this whole idea of a solopreneur must resonate with you, right? You don't
It,
have a big team behind you, I assume.
no, I have my brother who started this with me, and he works very minimally. He's part-time, and he helps out with a couple of tasks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, this is fantastic. So did you have, I mean, you had to learn these web tools and building websites and, all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. Um, did you just rely on, the LLMs to teach you and to guide you, or did you take on some studies? How did you learn to be a solopreneur?
Oh, without question, I relied on the LLMs, right? So
Hmm.
I've joined communities, and I've joined, like I've emailed half the people I know on LinkedIn just saying, "Hey, how did you start your business? I want to learn more about what you've done." But I joined a community that was created by actually an influencer called Chris Kerner. You might have heard of him.
Mm.
Chris Kerner, he has his podcast is called The Kerner Office, and he has a bunch of content about just encouraging people to start businesses, like no matter what that looks like. That can be a really large business or a really small business. And so a lot of his content had resonated with me. And I think that was a big part of me ultimately deciding to take that leap.
Mm.
But it was my experience with AI, I think, that made so many things feel possible. Like hopping on to, because I had created a website with like a drag and drop interface, like using Google Sites, and that was my personal website. But then I got into talking to Claude Code, and I don't have a lot of web background. I have some development background in Python,
Mm.
but in reality, I can just say, hey, how should I structure a website if these are the things that I want to accomplish with my website? And it tells me how to structure it. And I said, okay, like I also want to do this. How should I, consider making this change? And then after having that conversation, all you have to do is say, all right, now do it. And then it goes off and does it. And you learn really quickly. There are AI isms that exist in all of the code that it writes that the shapes and the colors all feel a little bit like AI, but as you start working with it, you learn, hey, I'm gonna go learn a little bit about design and know, hey, I can tell if I can tell the LLM how to design my website, it will obey. It will do it exactly how I'd like to do it. So it's
Mm.
just been amazing. Building little apps, building games, hopping on like a call with one of my brothers. Hey, do you remember this video game from when we were kids? Let's just make it. It's going to take us 15 minutes. I remember I was on a call with my older brother, and he lives in India.
Yeah.
He works for the State Department. He works at the embassy there in India, and
Yeah.
he was trying to get us to play this old Nintendo game, and he was using this emulator, and we were trying to play, and it just there was some sort of disconnect with his internet and my internet, and for some reason we weren't able to get this emulator running. And so while he and his wife and me and my wife, we were all chatting, getting ready to play this video game. I just really quickly vibe coded another game that we had played when we were kids,
Hmm.
and that's what we started playing for the rest of the night. And it took 15 minutes to just recreate a video game from my memory, and
That's unbelievable.
it's
Yeah,
just so cool.
I have. So this idea of vibe coding is really transforming what's happening, and we've seen, I guess, the software industry take a real hit. I was talking to
Mhm.
someone earlier this week, and he says it's just, there's just no workaround for software engineers. And the way I kind of think about it is you've got like a software projects like this, and what used to be a big chunk of the value creation and the cost was sitting in the middle here. You'd have your requirements and you'd have your rollout. Now that piece in the middle has just shrunk down
Uh-huh.
enormously because so many of us, you and I, because I'm not a coder either, I'll fiddle around with
Mhm.
Python and other things, and I was trained in it as an engineer, but I don't do it regularly, so I wouldn't call myself a coder, but I can do things like that too. I stood up an app in 5 hours, but this, just back to my point, this whole thing is shrunk in the middle, but the piece at the middle, the front and the back are still where I think where the value creation is. But that's
Mhm.
good in a way because people can now say, "Oh, well, I have this idea. Let me see if I can build it, and then I can explore it." And it feeds just straight into what you have done with your solopreneur. So there's enormous opportunities for anybody that wants to take the jump and become an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. I get on calls with people, and like there's still a learning curve. There's still a learning of what's capable. But like once you learn that new mindset of I have this employee who's like incredibly fast and capable, like if I don't know how to do something, I just need to ask it. Like
Mm.
if there's a problem, I just need to say, hey, there's a problem. And if I get to a point where it's not all working out, the good news is I've only been vibe coding this app for 2 hours. I can just start over now with this massive wealth of knowledge over that I've learned over the last 2 hours. Now I know what I want it to look like. Now I know I want like what I want it to do. I want it to do this and this and this. My requirements became so much clearer. Instead of me paying a development team over the course of like 2 months to build an
Mm.
MVP, I can build the MVP in 2 hours and then learn a lot, do it again. And it's just anyone can do it. Like genuinely anyone can do it. I was teaching my mom recently how she could use Claude to manipulate an app so that she could just automatically add stuff to her grocery list just by talking to it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, it is like that, isn't it? And I think you've
Yes.
just underlined something where you said, "Hey, there's a problem," and you talk to the chat bot, and say, "Hey, there's a problem." That goes right back to a management philosophy that I was taught 20 or 30 years ago. When from an engineer, I started working in management with people, and I was told that it's not what the answers are, it's the questions that you ask. That's the important part of being a good manager. It's asking good questions, constantly asking good questions, because often the solution is in the person's head anyway. They just don't
Right.
know how to find it. And I think this is such a good analogy between that. You are effectively managing your employee, which happens to now be your LLM, and you just have to ask it the right questions.
Right. I teach a lot of business owners how to think about prompt engineering and what I think prompt engineering
Mm.
it comes down. I have it on one of my slides, but it's really just knowing what the LLM needs to do the job well. Like
Mm.
that's what prompt engineering is.
Mm.
And it's a skill of developing. I have all of this wealth of knowledge and vision in my head. How do I articulate it to an LLM? Because the LLM can do just about anything, but it doesn't have what's in my head. How do I efficiently get it out so that
Yeah.
it can perform? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
skill for sure.
So in your day, how much time do you spend prompt engineering?
Whew. Well, there's kind of like two ways that I think about it, and I don't know why there's not a ton of in between. But the I don't know. I talk to Claude a lot, like just throughout the day. Hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I need you to do this. But um, often it's executing prompts that I have engineered like beforehand. So let's say I want it to prepare some sort of document. So the assessment that I'm going to give you, I'm going to look at the transcript today, and I'm going to look through it and think, from a real human perspective, who's experiencing this, because the LLM is not experiencing 2026 the way that you and I are and running
Yep.
a business in 2026. So it doesn't have that context. I need to look at the transcript myself and
Yep.
determine what's there. But I have a really big prompt that goes out and does research on tools, and it goes out and actually creates the actual report that you're going to get after
Hmm.
I tell it, hey, this is what I want to include in the report, and this is why I want to include these things. And so
Hmm.
every time I have some sort of project or some sort of repeatable task, that's where I would say I am prompt engineering. I'm thinking about what is the most efficient way for this LLM to achieve this task to the level that if I sat down for 10 or 15 hours and completed this task, it would almost replicate what I can do. Like that's a prompt engineering task. That's what I'm working with a client who works in the energy sector right now, and he's trying to automate the creation of these reports on federal regulations.
Hmm.
And that's all we're talking about is how do you get consistent output on this really big and complex task? So you're asking how much time do I spend doing it? I don't know. Probably at least an hour or two a day. I'm carefully thinking about how can I prompt LLMs better, but a lot of it's just me pressing my hotkey for whisper flow is control space and hey, can you do this for me? Like I need this ASAP, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I was in the Middle East last year and I read the paper over there. They said they were going to invest this is in Dubai. They were going to invest in prompt engineering and they planned over the next 2 years to have 1 million prompt engineers um,
Mm,
trained. I think that whole question about what is a prompt engineer for anybody that's just come into the AI world, they might have used ChatGPT and they're putting a question in. That's at very basic level.
right.
But then you talked about a very large prompt. Tell me
Mhm.
why, tell me what that is. Tell me what a large prompt is in your mind.
So a large prompt is, in my mind, something that's going to be 2 or 3 pages long and
Hmm.
often accompanied with some other source document, like
Hmm.
some other, I want this information uh, transformed, manipulated, and like analyzed and summarized in this really particular format.
Right.
So think about the client that I was just talking about. He has 100 pages of regulatory like filings, and he
Mm-hmm.
wants to basically create for the industry some sort of report that gives an insight and a summary in a way that certain groups of decision makers can make decisions. So that's where that 2 or 3 page prompt comes in, where it's saying, hey, I need a headline, I need a subheadline, I need this information and this information and this information. Like that is, in my mind, true prompt engineering. Like, hey, we're kind of getting mixed results here. Let me break it up in two separate prompts. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
prompt, for I want the first section extracted this way and then the second section extracted this way. One big parallel use case that I think of is attorneys. They have massive amounts of documentation that needs to be sorted through. But if I just tell Claude, hey, I need you to summarize this, it's not going to be pulling out those really specific pieces of information that serve the attorney. And so in reality, they're going to get a summary and they're going to read it, but they're not going to have a lot of confidence that it pulled out that important information
Yep.
that the lawyer, like after 15, 20 years of experience, knows I really only need 2 or 3 sentences in there. I need the LLM to extract those two or three sentences. So then the challenge, the task becomes prompt engineering so that we can effectively pull out those two or three sentences in a structured, reliable way.
Mm. So
Yeah,
I had
that's
a colleague of mine who was a previous podcaster as well, like when going back nearly 6 months, but he said to me, because we did one of our level up sessions where we actually take people into, an 1 hour session and we say, where are you at? We'll see if we can add to that, right? And we did. We gave him a couple of extra tools and he was very happy about that. But he said, the trouble is I give it a prompt and then it comes back and I say, yeah, but you haven't done enough detail, or and then it does it with more detail. And he says, why didn't you just do it like that in the first place?
yeah, exactly.
So that's a basic example of where prompt engineering really helps. If the more descriptive you are, the more information you give it,
Mhm.
the more likely you are to get the exact answer
I'd say
at the
on
end.
average, that's 100% true. But I've noticed there's this use case where it's that's not what I want to do. So
Mm,
let's say there's some sort of domain that I don't have a lot of expertise in.
mm,
So I can't legitimately be very descriptive. I can't be very prescriptive to this model to say this is
mm,
exactly what I want and this is how I want it done. So the
mm,
first one that comes to mind is like image generation. I'm not a photographer. I am not an artist. And so
mm.
if I try to be really prescriptive about the image that I want created, it looks like a third grader came up with the idea for the image because that's the art skill level that I have. So in those situations, it actually serves me to be a lot less prescriptive and just say and really just produce like 10 different options for me to pick from because I could see which one is
Yes.
good, but I'll say,
Yes.
hey, create an image and then I'll copy and paste that prompt 6 or 7 times and then one of them will come close to what my vision was, but
Mm.
the composition of them is going to be so much better. So there are
Yes.
situations where you want to be more general
Oh,
and
interesting. That's
that's
a
an
really good
example of
insight.
where I
So
want to be general.
I think I have the same approach to art as you do. I mean, music would be one area, but when it comes to visual art, no idea. But I'd say to someone, when I see it, I know. Like if I walk into a room, I know the room's set out nicely. Or if I see a
Right.
piece of art, I like it or I don't like it. Like I can form an opinion very quickly, but I have no understanding what goes into the process of building it.
Right,
No idea.
right.
Like
Like all you and I
I
could say is
can't.
I want this room to look nice. Like I want
Yes.
this picture to look good. I can't say I need the sun to be in the top right corner and I need it to
Mm,
shine on these people doing this thing and I want to express this feeling. When I have tried to do that or when I have had ChatGPT write that really descriptive prompt, it doesn't land. Like I can't do
no.
it. So
Yeah.
being more general there is helpful.
Yeah. I mean, image generation, and I think in video generation for AI, to me it was a bit of take your opinion. To me, it was a bit of a fad. Like it was exciting. It's good to be able to do it. Everyone plays around, and we burn a lot of electricity from the data centers creating
Yeah.
these.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost come and gone. Maybe not yet for everyone, but it's like, what's the point? I mean, yeah, I can make a funny image and a meme or whatever, but what's the point? Because I see a backlash, in almost like, no, I don't want to see the AI generated meme anymore. That's passe. I want to get back to genuine people. Are you seeing that?
Without question. Like, but one sentiment that I've heard many times and that I agree with is that people want value. And
Mm,
so
mm,
people like in a lot of use cases don't care if something is AI generated as long as it produces the same level of value.
right.
Now, there are some pieces of content that the knowledge that it is real is a huge component of the value. So I
Mm,
remember the first time that I was looking at a video where I was genuinely, excuse me, faked into believing that this was real. And it was a compilation of videos like on Instagram where a dog was saving the life of like a 2-year-old child. And it brought me to tears. I just was so amazed that so many times these dogs would come and oh the TV is going to fall over and it's going to save this kid. And in reality, I believe that's something that happens. Like it can happen. But the fact that they were all framed in just the same way with the same perfect timing, even though the actual footage, if you saw any one of them in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
looks perfectly real. But I saw them over and over again over the next few days, and all the comments were like AI, AI, AI. And it's like, who would even have a camera sitting there at that time? Like just the volume of these videos that can exist is inherently limited by like probability and statistics. Like either they are rehearsed in real life, which would be wrong, endangering your kid,
Mm-hmm.
or they are AI generated. And I was just blown away. So like obviously the joy that I felt from that was that I believed that they were real, and that was an issue. But my wife and I, on the other end, we've seen a commercial, and we don't want to like if we're forced to watch commercials, we don't want to watch commercials where an image is hallucinating something. Like that's annoying.
Mm.
But Google has this AI generated Google Fiber commercial that has beavers building a dam, and it's just these beavers that are talking about like Google Fiber. And you can tell that they're AI generated just by the art style. It's very this is an AI generated video, but it's well done. It's well produced, and there's the Google logo, there's the Google other animations that are overlaid on top of this AI generated video, and I am perfectly okay with watching that. And I don't like I think that they probably spent several $1,000s on this as opposed to several $1 million hiring people to
Mm.
do the CGI beaver.
Mm. So you
So
think we're entertained by it? Is that where the value was in the entertainment? The fact that you got a feeling, a positive, some sort of feeling from it?
I think so.
Mm.
Like the value, like, hey, I just want to look at something that's visually pleasing.
Mm.
And if AI is done poorly, then it's not visually pleasing. But if it's done well, it's visually pleasing. I'm not
Mm.
under the
Mm.
impression that beavers can actually talk. I'm not. It's like as long as it's honest. I think one area of video generation that's really popular that I have an issue with is like user generated content, giving reviews. So think about like influencers, the way that they'll say, "Hey, I just started using this supplement and it's changed my life." Um, I don't like the idea of that being completely AI generated
Mm.
unless it's disclosed. Like, but if
Mm.
it's disclosed, then what's the point of the testimonial? And
Right.
so, but people have been doing this for decades, where you hire an actor to say, "I've been using this for a long time." But I think again, it comes back to like what is the average perception of your audience? Like do they genuinely believe this is a real person? Like so many people on Instagram believe that this influencer is their friend. And so if they believe that this influencer is their friend and it's AI generated, I think that that can be more damaging to society. So I think it's important for people to think about it carefully, but I don't think that a lot of people are. I think they're just going to produce the content that converts, and it's good.
So I think where we're going with this is that, AI generated content has its place where it adds value, it works. As long as it's not trying to be something that it's not. I think if we know it's AI, I mean, we watch science fiction for, I have since the
I don't
70s.
watch Star Wars because I think it's real.
No,
I watch
exactly.
Star Wars knowing full well that it's not real.
Yeah. And but you like to see the story unfold and have everything connected
Right.
through what's generated there. And I think, yeah, there's that. And then at the other end, you do want to also, I think there's still this need for integrity. I think that's where it's cutting through here. It's the integrity. If it's AI generated, it's a sci-fi movie, then, we know that and we're prepared for that and we take it for what it can be, an exciting future or an exciting
Uh,
other world versus what your example was of something that's AI generated saying I'm taking a supplement when it's obviously not possible for an AI bot to take
right.
a supplement.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we have a joke about the Beaver commercial that I was telling you about that Google produced.
Mm.
She asked me the question while we were watching TV. She said, "Why is that beaver wearing a hat? Like, because it's wearing a little hat made out of sticks." And I
Hmm.
said, "You know what? I know exactly why. The first time they generated the picture of this beaver, it happened to have a hat on it, and there were prompt engineers all over Google saying." all right, I need you to reproduce it, but without the hat. Like, get rid of the hat. The hat cannot be there. And just every time the hat kept coming back and kept coming back. So they ultimately just had to roll with it. Now the beaver wears
Yes,
the hat in the video
yes.
because they couldn't prompt it away.
He couldn't prompt it away. I've had that experience too.
Yeah,
I
I
want
think
an
we all
image for my
have.
presentation, and I can't, no matter what I say to it, it will not change the one thing. I mean,
Presentations are the worst. I don't know why, like what we understand about how it views presentations on the back end, there's a disconnect.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So, um, you've discovered all of this in your journey, which I guess is going back quite a few years now, because when did ChatGPT launch? Was it
November
2022?
2022.
Yeah, so you were right there at the forefront. Now we're 2026, so I guess it was 4 years.
Yeah,
4 years is a long time in the AI world. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot less experience
right.
doing uh, doing what you do. So you're quite deep into this. Are you still? Are you, what do you think's happening in the world? Like when you work with these companies, is everyone going to lose their jobs? Are we going to? Is everyone going to transform to be solopreneurs? Where do you think things are going?
I don't think, well, I think like the development of any technology, right? The newspaper industry slowed down dramatically after the creation of the internet because we could access the same information in a more timely manner than ever before for a lot less money. Like, that's just the truth. There's going to be a handful of industries or jobs that are affected in a similar way, and that happens at the advancement of any technology. What's exciting about AI is that I think it produces a unique opportunity for there to be solopreneurs that either the business model that they are now rolling with wasn't possible before, like before AI, because of the leverage that it provides, or it enables somebody who never would have had the courage to step out on their own because there were so many blockers preventing them from starting their business. Like, oh, I know that a website isn't required for a lot of businesses to get started, but that's a mental blocker for a lot of people. And so if they can hop on and just make a website in 10 minutes and it have the cool buttons and features that they're looking for, all of a sudden that person feels like they can start a business. And so I think there's those are two big opportunities. There's a business idea that I have that I just created a landing page for that may turn into something, but it's called History Pen Pals. And it's essentially, I'm married, we have 4 kids, and we're homeschooling our kids. And the idea is that kids don't love history on average, and they spend too much time on screens. And so, History Pen Pals is an opportunity for them to have a physical, like visceral experience with a fictional character or even a real historical character from the past, where on the back end, we are writing letters that depict a story or an experience. And address it to a child, and it's handwritten on a piece of paper. The content's obviously generated by AI, but the kid, their experience gets to be, hey, I'm learning how to write better. I'm learning about history, and I'm learning about all of these things, and having this unique screen-free experience where I'm pumped to go to the mailbox and pull something out, like a little kid is.
Wow.
And this
Yeah.
business I don't think could have existed before AI
Mm,
in any
mm,
reasonable measure. Like,
mm.
what's somebody willing to pay for that? You know what? Like a $200 for one session of letters over the course of a few months. Having somebody craft and write letters by hand at the quality that you can say this is high quality education and this is entertaining, like the level of craftsmanship you would need to endow a bunch of writers with
Mm.
to actually write these letters for it to be the product, you'd be paying so much money. It just never would have been profitable. Never, ever, ever. But it's this product that's good
Mm.
for society that I think is fun to do. It would be, your first package comes with a fountain pen. It's this awesome business idea that just couldn't have existed before. And there's hundreds and thousands of others that people are starting similarly that just no one could have justified the capital to do this experiment, whether or not this business will be successful. It's too niche. This isn't going to be a multi-billion-dollar company. This is a company that might bring in a few $100,000 a year if it's done well. And if one person can do that, then it's worth all of their time. But
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
so
You
I
know
think
what?
there's a huge opportunity
You're
there.
really solving some real problems, as you said, kids with screen time, not writing. So there's definitely a problem there. I think it resonates with parents. And what was I was waiting for you to tell me, but you did, and that is that you actually get a real letter. You actually get a physical paper
Yes.
letter. When I was a kid, there was this thing called pen pals or whatever it was, and you get connected with somebody overseas. And I ended up, I think it was a guy in Brazil. I was in Australia. He was in Brazil. He sent me a letter. I sent him a letter, and then we both fizzled out. It was really hard to write a letter, but
Right.
getting the letter was fantastic.
Right.
Writing the letter was no fun.
Exactly.
So, would the experience be that they would write a letter back, or
Absolutely. Yeah. So they write a letter back, and depending on how the parents want to do it, if they're okay with the long feedback loop, they can mail it back to them. But I more so envision the parent scanning a QR code and just taking a picture of the child's writing, and that being sent digitally back to us, where we're able to form a response letter, so that we don't have to deal with the extra postage. Remember, just reducing friction. It's a lot easier to scan a QR code and take a picture than it is to like, mom, when are like we got to go to the post office to drop off this letter, or or whatever it is.
yeah?
I think it's a lot easier.
So I might be able to even do it for myself, like for maybe I'm interested in talking to Albert Einstein or something like that. So,
So I talked to a marketing specialist in the homeschool space, and I'm obviously targeting homeschool at the beginning because that's where I'm living. But I think in reality, there's a much bigger market available. I wouldn't know how to market both at the same time, but I think about just an adult, like getting a really high quality fountain pen in the mail for Christmas, and then a subscription to write with this fountain pen to a historical figure where I learn about their life and I learn about, like what lessons did they learn that I can apply in my life. Like, I think that would be an awesome experience for anyone.
yeah.
So there's definitely a bigger opportunity there.
There was this thing called mass customization, which came out a little while back, especially when we started moving into 3D printers and the idea of,
Hmm.
I mean, it's been around for 20 years where, well, just a little history. I was with Nokia back in the 90s, and they were all black phones, right? But Nokia realized that, you know what, you could personalize your phone by having a snap-on cover. Chung, chung, chung. So there was this whole
Right.
market that just exploded where you'd have these little snap-on covers, and everyone had different colors and styles. And that was the concept of mass customization. Um, and kind of this is a really interesting idea that with this technology, with this AI technology, it can take mass customization to a whole new level, like intellectually, just like what you've done with this idea of pen pals. Yeah, things that just wouldn't have been at all possible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
think there's so many people who are afraid of AI, and I get that
Mm,
there are still risks here, right? There needs to be strong quality assurance on the quality of these letters to make sure
mm,
that they're not hallucinating. But like with a fine-tuned model that can stay in its lanes, if it does, like I just don't see very many negatives to this type of business where like this is just good for society use of AI. And I don't
yeah.
think that people are recognizing that there are a lot of things like that created by AI. Just like with the internet, a huge source of bad and a huge source of good. And I think
Yeah.
AI is the same way. So I hope if more people can get on board and get excited about the good that can come from it, more good will exist from it.
Hmm. Are you seeing any bad examples of the use of AI?
Well, I mean, there's sex robots and there's the creation of romantic partners. I don't even feel good telling you that my AI assistant is a girl, like, because she's not. It's a female voice, so I don't know how else to describe it. I could just say it, but she is informative because it's accessed through natural language, through voice, and so
Mm,
there's obviously an inherent like genderification of it. But treating these things as humans, other than it being an opportunity for us to rehearse manners, like we should still say please, we should still say thank you,
yep.
because if we don't, then we're developing the habit of not being polite. But other than that, these are machines that function and operate and can be like super helpful. But them filling some sort of emotional role in our life that proxies for human connection, I think is a huge risk. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago where this is her entire business model, the guest on the podcast show. It was the AI Fix is the name of the podcast, but there was a woman on, and her whole thing is, you're going through a divorce and your sister's asleep. It's 3 a.m. You need to talk to somebody, like talk to this AI person, or even to the point of your family member dies. Let's take all of the texts that you have with them and transfer that over to an LLM so that that person can continue to live in some sense. And I think those are bad uses of AI. I think that that's ultimately damaging to our spirits and to our mental health
So
in the long run.
you
It can
think
offer temporary relief, but
right? I was thinking there is this kind of temporary relief. I was analyzing myself about why using a chat is easier and better and more pleasant than the way I used. Like we had this example of trying to find someone to fix your roof, right? You'd have to go to a portal, you'd have to find someone in your area, you'd have to get the ranking, and you'd have to do a lot of searching. And then you get
right.
to the guy and find he's not available for 3 weeks. You need him this afternoon, or he doesn't do the shingles that you do. Whereas if you come in from the AI side of things, it meets you exactly where you are. I've got a roof problem. I've got this type of shingles. Oh, whereabouts are you located? Blah blah blah. Do you need something now? But like it's meeting you exactly where you are, and
Mhm.
that's to me is much more pleasant than having to do all the searching myself.
Oh, absolutely. So, but in that situation, it's not replacing human connection, it's replacing a bunch of clicks, like for you, and a
Right.
bunch of staring at a screen. And
Mm,
so,
mm, mm.
oh, it's just, yeah, like that is the use case for AI, like replacing our usage of screens, not replacing our
Good insight.
experience with a human
Really good
being.
insight. And it comes back to your pen pals. I mean, I'd like to have less screen time, and I'd like to see other people have screen time. And
Uh-huh.
then when you said replacing uh, human connection, I think that's an important point too. Are people going to find themselves migrating to the chatbot rather than putting the effort into a real relationship? Because it's just more comforting. Like they're there to please, they're there to make you feel good, and you do feel good. So just keep going back, and instead of
I
saying, "Oh, I got to deal with my brother" or whatever.
I think that it's a source of I mean, think about everyone has problems and struggles in their lives, and there's a small percentage of the population who has decided to turn to drugs or other substances or other sources of entertainment to alleviate that pain. I think
Mm,
that there's going to be a group of people who look to LLMs to be the solution to their pain. And I'll
mm,
be honest, like there have been a couple of situations where maybe a boss at work did something I genuinely wasn't sure how to react to it, or I wasn't sure how I should word this email to try to resolve this very human problem. And I went to ChatGPT to sort out this problem. And I think that it can be helpful there, but I was under no illusion that like this is a proxy for my wife helping me with my problems. This is a proxy for my therapist helping me with problems. But yeah, I think that there will be a large group of people who decide to do that. But I think just like with drugs, like we used to think that cigarettes were great. We used to think that cocaine was great. And it won't be long before we fully realize a lot of the damaging effects that come from not addressing our problems the proper way with real
yeah,
human connection. That's the source of fulfillment. I don't think that any lasting fulfillment can come from LLMs. There's no soul or spirit in them.
yeah. I understand and I agree. I mean, your point about technology coming and having two sides to it, I think there's quite a few cases where kids have grown up and become gamers and becoming obsessed with, and they're locked in their room. And the parents not even allowed in the room without permission whilst they're gaming, because that's their thing. And they're literally peeing themselves in the chair or whatever because they're so obsessed by the gaming. And I tell you,
Sure.
you know, like I used to play Space Invaders, and I dropped my coin into the slot. And once the dollar had gone, that was it. I couldn't do any more. I couldn't play Space Invaders. So the technology has come and I guess, turned into a monster for some people, not just a piece of entertainment. And I think that's the big takeaway here, isn't it? I think use, but not overuse, not over reliance would be a couple of themes in here.
Absolutely.
Um, but also, I think, drilling into what AI can really do. in terms of, I really love your idea of, you said it very clearly, being able to create a business model that couldn't possibly exist before. That's
Mhm.
really interesting, isn't it? And that's where I think we should kind of, as entrepreneurs as we both are, really think about easy ways, quick ways, better ways to create value for people that just wasn't on the table before, you know?
Right.
Mm, fantastic. Patrick, we're running out of time. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I really love what you're doing here. This has been a lot of fun to have this conversation. There are things that I don't have enough time to just chat with people about the philosophies and the pros and cons of AI and where it's good and where it shouldn't be used. So I love it.
Yeah, me too. This has been great. I find the podcast is very real and um, interesting because we don't know what we're going to be talking about, and we both have to be engaged and listening to one another in a real human interaction. No AI is being used in the creation of this podcast.
Exactly.
So one final question before we wrap up. Patrick, is AI hype or help?
I don't know what response you usually get, but this is the lamest one that you'll get is that it's both,
Mm,
right? Like I said, AI is a source of good and it's a source of bad. It's a huge source of hype and it's a huge source of help.
mm,
If you're looking for your information on social media and Twitter, it's going to be a source of hype. If you are in the weeds, like using the tools, talking to folks who use it regularly and saying, "Hey, I have this problem." And I know that it can probably be automated or augmented or improved with AI.
mm,
I'm going to systematically figure out how to do that. It
mm,
is without question a help. It
mm.
it can genuinely speed up the creation of anything, the work of anything, where the majority of it is clicking or reading or pasting, all of these different processes. Yeah, it's a help for me for sure.
Yeah. Patrick, this has been great. We're going to have you back on because you're such a great guest. You're such great insights. I love the things you're doing. Neyland Solutions, the pen pals. I really wish you great success with that. So let's have you back again soon. Thanks for
Thanks, I
coming on.
appreciate it. I'd love to. Thanks.
All right. Well, that was a great chat with Patrick. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, Patrick was a seasoned solopreneur and started around the time that ChatGPT was launched. So he's really been doing this for a while. He successfully helps companies and people use AI much better. And we talked about prompt engineering, about how to create deep prompts that are useful in certain applications versus going very light on other prompts and when you should use them. Also, we talked about mass customization. So this is where, you can actually get new business models which are highly customized solutions for people with AI, which wasn't something that you could do most recently. So there's new business models coming up for solo entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And then finally, we talked a little bit about AI and the fake AI versus the real content. So when is it appropriate in each case? And it's not always black and white. Sometimes AI generated content can be very entertaining, and other times we need the integrity of a real human. So this is an emerging, fascinating field. If you want to know more about Skillion or Neyland Solutions, we'll leave the links in the description. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.